Hello everyone and welcome to this special video because usually on this channel I'm making JavaScript coding videos, but in this one I'm going to be taking a look at OpenAI's ChatGPT model, focusing very much on its value in practice in potentially improving your productivity as a developer or programmer. So I'll be asking questions like, should you be using ChatGPT to improve your workflow? If so, when and how should you use it? And how worried should you be about ChatGPT as a potential replacement for you as a human programmer? So in this video, I'm going to be focusing on JavaScript examples, but you should know that you can also use ChatGPT in the same way in relation to other programming languages such as Python, C#, and others. So ChatGPT is currently available for anyone to use for free on the OpenAI website, where it has been published as a research release. So you do need to sign up to start using it, but you can do that quite quickly with your own email or login details from a social media platform. And once you've done that, then you can immediately start a conversation with the ChatGPT model. Now, before I start a new conversation in ChatGPT, note that the authors themselves note that a limitation is that it may occasionally generate incorrect or misleading information. So the authors are quite straightforward about the fact that ChatGPT may sometimes not provide the correct answer. So I'll just click through some of these other warnings. Don't share sensitive information, and also your conversations may be reviewed by humans at ChatGPT. And okay, so now we're ready to go. So you can start a new chat just like this, very simply typing into the dialog box below whatever question you want to ask ChatGPT. So there are already some example questions here that you could ask, such as how do I make a HTTP request in JavaScript? But to make this a bit more interesting, I'll ask a question that isn't on the list. So one concept that people sometimes struggle with in JavaScript is understanding promises. So let's see if ChatGPT can explain JavaScript promises to us. And we'll see what kind of response it serves up. So this is the first practical way that you might consider using ChatGPT in your workflow, is as a kind of explainer of concepts. So it's providing quite a detailed answer here, and it looks like quite a good one. It's going through the different statuses that a promise can have, starting with pending and then turning to fulfilled or rejected. Sometimes ChatGPT, it provides a code example. This time it doesn't, but one of the cool things about ChatGPT is you can ask follow-up questions. So I'll ask, could you provide a code example for that? And ChatGPT will usually serve something up that I could then run and check in the browser. So this looks quite good. It's giving me a code example where 50% of the time the promise is going to resolve successfully, and the other 50% of the time it's going to reject. So I'll copy this code just to check if it is working. Start live server. Now, if I open the console, you see that this time the promise fulfilled with a result that was above 0.5. The other half of the time it's rejecting, so I assume it was less than 0.5 on this occasion. So this looks like a really good explanation of promises, and it's even got a working code example that you can use to test it out. And if you want to read about how exactly this code block works, then it's providing a quite detailed explanation below the code here. Now I'll ask another follow-up. Can ChatGPT rewrite that last example it gave me using async await syntax? And we'll see what it provides. Okay, so we're getting a response back now, and it says that it can do that. And this looks pretty good. So the promise is not in an async function, but the handling is in an async function, and it's using the await keyword there to await the result of the my promise function. So just to check that that is working, I will copy the code again. And let's see if we get the same results as last time. So we are getting a successfully fulfilled promise this time. And again, we should eventually hit an error, which we are now. And this time the random number was above 0.5. So again, the promise has returned successfully. Now I'm going to create a new chat, and this time I'm going to be using ChatGPT as a shortcut for writing some code that would otherwise take me much longer. So using ChatGPT kind of as an assistant programmer. So I'm going to ask it if it could create boilerplate code for a Node.js and Express server with multiple endpoints. Okay, so let's see what comes back this time. So it's setting up an Express app with several get endpoints. So there's 3 get endpoints here, and it would start running on port 3000 if I ran this code. So this looks like really good boilerplate code that I could get started with. Now, what I actually had in mind was a server with post, put, and delete endpoints, but I didn't specify that in the question. So I'm going to ask a follow-up question again here. So we'll see if ChatGPT can add those successfully. So we've got our endpoint 1, which is get. It's adding the second endpoint, that's post. 3 is a put, and it has a delete as well. So it's done exactly what I asked it to do. And this looks like it would be great boilerplate code to get started in creating a Node Express server. So this is a really good outcome. It's written the code for me far faster than I could have written it myself. I've also been able to customize the code by asking a follow-up question. The only caveat here is, of course, that I am able to know that this is a good answer because I know what the answer should be. If you don't know what a good answer should look like in code, then you could run this code and test it by making HTTP requests to the various endpoints, so checking that it works in practice. In any case, I can see already that this code looks like it would work just fine. So this definitely increases my confidence in ChatGPT, and it's helped me to complete a task that would otherwise take me much longer. Now, as a final example, I'll ask ChatGPT a question which is a bit more niche than I have done already. So not so niche that you wouldn't ask it, but a bit more niche than asking for some boilerplate code. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT if you can track the progress of an upload using the fetch function. Now, this is an issue that I have looked into myself, and to the best of my knowledge, you cannot track the progress of an upload using the fetch function, but ChatGPT here is telling me that it is possible. So let's see what kind of answer it provides. So it's telling me, seems like it's going to tell me that you can do it using the XML HTTP request object, but that isn't the fetch function. Okay, so it is actually using the fetch function here. So let's see. Okay, so we are actually using the XML HTTP request in the end. So I'm a little bit confused by this code so far. It's going to give me an explanation here. So it looks like what's going on here is when a user selects a file, that would trigger a change event here. A form data object is being created with the file on the payload, and then it's actually making 2 separate uploads. So it's uploading the thing twice, which isn't the same as tracking upload progress with fetch. In fact, it's not using fetch to track the upload progress. You may as well not have a fetch request here. You wouldn't want to make 2 uploads of the same payload at the same time. So to test this, I'm going to ask ChatGPT a follow-up question because this JavaScript relies upon the existence of a progress bar and also a file input element in the HTML. So I'll ask ChatGPT, can you add HTML to this example? And usually ChatGPT will provide some extra code for you. So it's going to actually provide me the entire HTML document that I can then copy and paste. So I'll just wait for it to finish here. Now that it's finished, I'll copy this code and I'm going to overwrite this entire document here. Now, the only thing that I need to change in the code is to add a valid endpoint in both cases. So I'm going to be making a post request to HTTP bin, which is a live test API that just mirrors back to you whatever you send it. So we're not so interested in what it is sending back. We're just interested in making the post request and watching the progress bar update if it does so. So my suspicion is that it will, but we'll be making two HTTP requests, one of which is completely unnecessary, which is the one using fetch. So in order that we can see what is going on, I'm going to open the network tab here. And once I choose a file, the uploading will start. So it is making two post requests here, a fetch and also an XHR request, and they're both actually successful. So the status code is 200 in both cases, and you saw that the upload progress bar, it worked. The big catch is that we are making two post requests when we only need to make one, and we're not updating the progress bar using fetch like we asked ChatGPT to do. And just to demonstrate to you that that fetch request is entirely redundant as far as the updating of the progress bar is concerned, just delete the fetch request from the code completely. And if I try uploading again, you see the progress bar, it's being controlled, updated by the XML HTTP request object. It wasn't being controlled by fetch. So in contrast to our earlier experiences using ChatGPT, the outcome here is not so good. It not only thinks that it is possible to track upload progress with fetch, which to the best of my knowledge still isn't possible, but it produces some plausible looking code, but upon studying it and testing, we can see that it's making one unnecessary post request using fetch, which kind of looks like it's answering my request correctly, but really when I deleted the fetch request, you could see that it wasn't using fetch at all. So for me, the biggest problem with this example is not so much that ChatGPT got something wrong, but that I didn't receive any kind of indication along with the answer that it is an uncertain answer. As it stands, I've got no way to distinguish between the certainty of this answer or the one about promises or the Node Express server. So you would expect that for the previous two questions, which are on more common topics, that the certainty of the answer would be higher than for this niche question. And indeed, upon studying the code, we find that the answers to the previous questions are better. And this one is not really something that you'd want to implement in practice, although ChatGPT is giving no indication that this answer might be problematic. So what does all this mean? Well, ChatGPT, as we've seen, it can be very useful for doing common and routine tasks. And for now, this is probably its most important use case. But even here, it would be risky to trust ChatGPT answers blindly, as they can be wrong. And if they are wrong, you can only tell if you know what the correct answer should look like, and or you're testing a lot, and I mean a lot of testing, if you were trusting it blind without understanding the code. And for more niche questions, as we saw, ChatGPT, it seems to struggle a bit more. So it's probably best to rely on authoritative sources rather than trusting the ChatGPT answer in these cases. If you do, there is actually a potential for a productivity net negative where you spend more time debugging non-functional code than if you were to look up the answer and get it from a trusted source. So maybe in the future, ChatGPT, it will become better at these kind of tasks. But for now, I wouldn't drop your reliance on regular trusted sources for tasks other than those which are routine and common. And even for this, I still wouldn't implement anything live in a project without studying the code first. But certainly ChatGPT, it can spin up solutions for common tasks very quickly. And I think it is in this area that there is the biggest opportunity for an improvement in your workflow and productivity. So for example, in spinning up the server in no time and also customizing the endpoints. Now, finally, what is the potential of ChatGPT to replace programmers? So at the moment, I see ChatGPT more as a productivity boosting tool used by programmers rather than a replacement for them. But what I could see in the not too distant future is ChatGPT overtaking the more mundane and repetitive tasks in web development and programming, especially if some kind of certainty indicator is provided on answers, where you could say something like, okay, if it's a 99.9% correct answer, then I'm happy to assume it's correct, but it has to be over that threshold. I could see in that scenario ChatGPT being trusted and used on a more widespread basis. But for the moment, I think it's going to be used in this way to sort of spin up servers and do boilerplate code and some customization that would otherwise take a lot longer if you were to code it yourself. So that is it for this special video on ChatGPT. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please consider hitting the like button down below this video. It helps us with the algorithm and others to find this video. And if you'd like to see more content like this from us in the future, don't forget you can subscribe to the channel.